Welcome to Leadership Within, the moment for leaders to reflect on their human experience of leadership. And sometimes it is so funny when I say that, isn't it, Vanessa?
Yes, it is.
Hey,
I noticed I sniffed just as you did that too.
Oh, I thought you were actually having a bit of a laugh on me doing the intro. But you know what? I think the moment sometimes can also be with humor and a bit of a sneeze. How are you today, Vanessa?
I am well. How are you, my friend?
I'm actually quite okay after a long week. With still some work to do on the weekend, which actually I feel okay about because, when you do good work, it just maybe shows your purpose. That being said, I have a topic that I wanted to talk to you about and to our lovely listeners that is maybe tied to it a bit. Because, you know what? As a leader, as anyone in the world of work, quite often we can face a situation where our egos may act up. So, as an example, there might be a situation when someone does not acknowledge your reputation or your position, your status, and many people get triggered by that. And many people go into leadership, honest or not, to have this status. And when it is being undermined, on purpose or not, they might be prone to ego hijacks and making irrational decisions. I'm wondering if you've seen anyone in this particular state, Vanessa.
No, never.
Well, that's quite a surprise because I have had these situations and, I've suffered them myself. And I'm actually thinking is it something that happens to leaders more than other people because of, their perceived self-status, value, and position?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? You're making me think. I was talking to someone who defined themselves as a leadership coach the other day, who I had only just met, and I was really acutely aware of we were talking about the same thing, as in leadership coaching, but the worlds that we came from were really different. So not wanting to make somebody wrong, but just really realizing that there are very different types of people that do leadership coaching, and they come from different philosophies, worldviews, and so this person's worldview was very much around the role, what they have to do, hire, fire, make difficult decisions, inspire, and I just kept feeling that the conversation that we were having was jarring for me because of this. I take the view, I've said it many times, I take the view anyone and everyone can be a leader, particularly in their own lives. And it isn't about, or it isn't solely about the function that a title holds. So yeah, I felt my own ego in that, like kind of wanting to have a conversation about what felt to me a limited perspective around the role or function of a leadership coach, and then just realizing, actually, was that really important? So that's probably my own ego bumping up there. It's like, yeah.
Well, our own egos are the ones that we probably know the most and have most experience with. Similar for me when, I was perceived as someone, talking about me behind my back and sort of escalating, quote unquote, in my situation. It isn't necessarily applicable. I just felt like someone disrespected me and my position and my own status, undermining it, showing me where my place is. And to be honest, it had really unsettled me. Not, that I've necessarily acted out on it, Although maybe I had days ago saying, well, there you go, there's the feedback. But I spent most of the day actually, I don't know, sulking, like really worrying about it, really being angry. It stopped me from being productive. It had taken away most of my energy for the day. And it's been a low point, for, I don't know, for a few weeks. And it's such an awful thing when first we let ourselves be, I don't know, hijacked and let ourselves be driven to emotion by this sudden ego outburst. I'm
Mm.
just wondering, like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the word that kind of chimed out to me was respect. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes, I definitely think, like, I mean, it can show up at home where I feel like, hang on a second, show me some respect. And sometimes when I feel like I'm in the territory of respect, that that's that's when this stuff shows up. I'm thinking, okay, so what gives me that respect? Is it just because, I'm in a role?
Well, theoretically, you could say that you can't disrespect a person that respects themselves. You can't shackle a person that has freedom within their own minds. Yet, even knowing that, even, I'm not saying preaching that, but talking about it on a podcast out of all places, it would seem that it's actually quite hard to keep. It's actually I'm not proud of the fact that I was angry for most of the day and most of the week, and I still could use it as a load point for this simple thing that happened. And you know what? I think it just escalated out of like a random conversation, and it just happened, right? It's not that someone meant to disrespect me. In various, it just happened. I don't think there is ill will. It's just how I felt. So theoretically, there's like a limiting assumption, maybe some vulnerability, some soft spot that's been touched. Maybe if it's about respect or it's about status, maybe I felt unsure about my status in the first place. Maybe that's what's
Yeah.
happening.
Well, but what's so interesting, isn't it, is I think you're talking about
Yeah.
is really knowing what are the triggers, what are the things that really trigger your ego to act out. And I don't mean that necessarily directly to you, but to anybody. Do we really know what they are? Because often in the moment when we have that kind of eruption or defense that we need, we feel like we need to hold up. I don't think unless we've done the work around really recognizing the triggers, I think that's when we do get lost into this kind of rumination and kind of festering around what happened and how it should have been different.
But it's difficult work, isn't it? Because it obviously unravels the things that we really want to hide and not look at. We, hide our, well, dare I say, insecurities deeply so they don't get exposed and no one can poke at them. And yet, when that happens, this is why we might be unprepared. This is why I was unprepared. Now, the real question is, and I work in the field where I hope I am quite reflective, and theoretically, I wasn't sulking all week, so I wasn't terrible at dealing with it. Although I have high standards for myself when it comes to these things. What can we say to leaders that have other jobs in their life beyond reflecting and understanding their own triggers? What can they do to prepare?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I think it's probably the same though, isn't it? Yeah, that's a really interesting question. We're designed to track threat, aren't we? And maybe it is about what are the things in our history that can potentially come today and threaten us, even though they're not threats. And so much, I think, is around communication and mishearing and all those different things. So for me, I had this conversation with a social worker that today, weirdly enough, and she said to me, Vanessa, do you really think most people are thinking or talking or even aware of this kind of thing? And that's where I fail, I think, is because I do assume that most people are, really looking at their own development, their own growth, their own awareness levels, their own emotional intelligence. I just kind of assume, mainly because of the kind of places that I hang out in, that everyone's doing it. And equally, I can assume that the people that teach it or, work in the field are doing it. And I think that's been the biggest kind of wake up call to me, is that's not true. Some of my colleagues don't do it, and so I think this thing of being willing to say, wow, life is this big learning experiment, and where are the places that we typically go, and how can we become even better at the way that we respond, so that we treat each other with equality, respect, love, kindness, whatever it is. I assume, and this is my failing, that everyone is interested in that work. I don't think they are.
The real question, I guess, is, and in the notes that I've prepared for this conversation, there's a couple of techniques that I've placed, and one of them is to practice humble behaviors on purpose, admitting small mistakes, sharing credit, spotlighting others. That being said, it raises a question if we truly believe that when we actually show humility, when we actually show empathy, someone is interested or willing to respond in kind. Many people hold the belief that it's not going to happen, that the world is a hostile place.
Yeah, and also so I love the practice of humble behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm the person that's always doing humility and those around me aren't leaning in, is that helpful?
Exactly. I would say helpful to what, right? Theoretically, if
Well, I suppose ultimately I was thinking to me.
Yeah, well, ultimately, this is the question I'm asking myself is, is it effective? What do we want to achieve by that? Do we want to use humility the humble behaviors to manipulate others into a certain position? Or do we believe that this is the right thing to do and it generates value by itself? If we have a strong belief that this is something that we're supposed to do, it raises our, self-awareness and, the belief in ourselves, our self-status beyond others' ability to influence it, right? We are on the moral high ground of doing what we're supposed to do. Just because someone is, not willing to go there yet, because maybe they haven't gone there yet, maybe they're not in the time and place to do that, it's okay to show empathy, even if they're being unrespectful and aggressive, theoretically, right?
Yeah, not and I suppose I want to I want to play with that a little bit, because I feel like one of the things that you hear very much when you go into therapeutic training for yourself or coach training is that if you're in a relationship, husband and wife or partner and partner, whatever it is, and one person is doing a lot of work on themselves and the other isn't, the likelihood is that relationship won't last, because one's growing, evolving, and the others are getting left behind. So I suppose, maybe I'm not articulating myself very well, but I think that's the question I'm asking. If, for example, on a team, you have an individual that is really looking at themselves, really doing a lot of work on themselves, but the rest aren't, then is the likelihood that at some point that person will go, you know what, I'm swimming in the wrong water.
Mm-hmm.
I need a different. So there's something about how do we create that collective humility or collective humble behaviors rather than always being an individual practice?
I guess it needs to start somewhere. And the real question is, are we able in this situation to openly talk about that? Are people even willing to understand this particular concept, or just brush it off, right? As, he or she's complaining or being fluffy. If we can't even reach a level of conversation on this particular topic, I don't think anything can really change beyond the fact that someone will really respond to your empathy and humility.
Yeah.
I'm working with someone that, is, let's say, very action driven. Everything is done really quickly and we really don't have a lot of time together. And yet, I think, this person responds to my mindset. I admire this person a lot for other things, not necessarily for their oversimplification and fast pace or, risk. Not was the opposite of risk averse, risk taking and appetite. That being said, there are still ways to communicate. We might not be able to talk on the level of safety, emotions, and such. Maybe it will happen at some day, but I believe their style of behavior, communication at work isn't reflective. Yet, I would say that, there's a lot that can be admired. And I think empathy and showing a particular mindset has given me some leeway with them and caused, our relationship to hopefully flourish.
Yeah. So you said to me that they're action orientated.
Yes.
So what's great about being action orientated?
Well, in my mind is like, I often think about that because I work with this person a lot. And, I thought, if only the thing about this person is waiting or delaying isn't necessarily their first choice. Dare I say, it's their last resort.
Yeah.
And this brings results. Things get done.
So they get shit
results
done,
get delivered.
Yeah.
Yes. And, things don't get delayed. And, expectations are pretty obvious. They demand a lot from themselves. And, they also can see other people doing the same. This brings this direct connection, elevates the relationship, even though I don't think this person is, keen on this fluffy thing, as they would call it.
So before you go there, right? So, okay, so we know that you can rely on them for getting shit done. What's the cost of them being action orientated?
Oh, plenty, I think, because what happens is quite often things get lost and misunderstood. Trust can be betrayed. Details can be omitted, and through that, obviously, things can fall between the cracks, and the devil in the details can raise its ugly tail, which I don't necessarily like because, someone has to clean things up, and if you know me, Vanessa, it's usually myself. This can bring resentment, and in these moments, I'm thinking, do you know what, TK? You might, in this situation, think about delaying, or, I'm not saying being lazy, but being cautious. But, haven't you been cautious enough?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is the pro is they get things done. The kind of downside of that is they don't always get the right things done.
Well, no one's perfect.
Right.
But that's what I'm trying to do, right?
Yeah,
in this situation.
So then my kind of question is, can you accept that this is a person that gets things done, but not always in the right way, or or does the right thing? Like, can you just accept that's that kind of person? Because they're not going to change.
I have decided to do so.
Amazing. Like, I mean, like, I know it sounds like I sound a bit patronizing now. I don't mean to, but it's like, because my habit has always been to look at someone like that and go, oh, if only you developed a bit more relationally, or and then I'm wasting my time.
Oh, come on, Vanessa. It's not like I haven't done that. I'm still doing the same. No. It's like, I still think, oh my Lord, how can you not see this? This is just like, But then I said, what's the decision I'm making? Am I making, and I think we spoke about last time, if I'm making a decision to work with someone that has this particular quality, with my, on my high horse, I place myself as the decision maker. I am making the decision to work with them, and I'm making a decision to admire their positive qualities.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. And I think that's that for me, that's the ego point, right? It's like, okay, when I get up on my high horse and I'm like, this person should be like this. Why are they like this? And like
And then you
that's when I
switch the horse and
lose.
say, well, I am the one deciding to work with you, petty fool, right? I'm not saying I'm saying that, because I actually, I'm on my high horse admiring the thing and say, well, damn, I can't do that. Well, if only I could, I would be in a different place right now.
Right.
And,
But
absolutely.
but it's that thing, isn't it, of like, I have so many conversations with people, and I have definitely done this myself, where, I mean, if you took insights, for an example, I was having a conversation with someone recently, and they were saying, so they were very red in their insights, like very driver, very action orientated, and they're working with someone who is very yellow. And I'm like, okay, so, and then they get angry and frustrated.
Of course they would, right?
Yeah, but it's like, okay, it's so interesting, isn't it, that the habit is just to run that pattern, and what's needed is that, oh wow, take a step back. What's the value in this difference? And that is so simple to say and really hard to do in the moment when you've got a pattern of running a particular emotional habit.
Well, there you go. But then again, when you look at the techniques there, one of the important ones is just like, okay, well, give it 10 seconds. Breathe, right? Don't act on the emotion. When it comes to big decisions, like sleep on it.
So let me ask you about that. Okay,
go ahead.
Let me ask you about that one, because I'm always saying that, right? And I'm curious about how easy that has been for you to do, because I know sometimes I have felt that moment of being on the edge and I should breathe, but then no, I want to roll. I want to go with that wave. It's just like, it sounds such a simple technique, but to me, I just think it does take a commitment to practice it over and over.
Well, and I'm not a particular expert in using it. I, think I am sometimes quite impulsive and expressive. So it's not always easy for me to shut up. In fact, it has caused a lot of setbacks in my life, and it probably will still do so. Having said that, what really helps is if you actually find for instance, a bodily pattern, like, rub your fingers together, your hands or something, to bring you back into a different place, right? There's like this tapping thing. There's plenty of techniques that you can use, that you can easily research. What I do, and you might have seen me, Vanessa, is I started, because of the client I work with, I can't use my tablet. So I brought out all my fountain pens.
Oh, lovely.
So then I look at my nib, my wonderful blue ink. I start writing. The ink is flowing in such a wonderful and pristine way that everything takes a pause. Now, obviously, they're quite expensive and not everyone likes a fountain pen, but you can find something different. Look at your watch if you love this particular thing, and, I have a watch that provides it to me. I'm sure that there are many things, I'm not saying distractions on your phone, that you can actually use as this focus point for yourself to bring you back into a place that you are in more control, that you are able to resist the urge, whatever it is.
Love that.
Unless it's an urge to buy another expensive pen. Yeah.
I've always wanted a Mont Blanc.
Okay, it's a different conversation about ego and me not actually, I don't have a Mont Blanc, nor do I have a Rolex. I have more expensive pens and watches, but I don't, because I don't like what they stand for. But it's a completely different discussion, and it's me on my high horse saying, well, I'm better than a golden Rolex, because my Grand Seiko Snowflake has, or my Pilot Vanishing Point, sometimes we do get hijacked, and it's fine. So, what are you taking away, Vanessa?
Oh, that we're all mad.
Yes.
That this thing that we talk about all the time, of leadership requires us to really hold ourselves to a standard and to have compassion and humility for ourselves, but to keep the practice going.
And the fact is that the more we talk about it, the more we think about it, the more we discover how it grows us as humans, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, right?
Indeed. Have a great day, Vanessa, and our listeners. See you soon. Bye-bye.